I've always been interested in the photograph as being a metaphor. I've never been interested in necessarily recording a scene. I'm always trying to take a photograph that suggests other things than what's in the photograph. My name is Bill Lesch. I'm not really sure how I ended up being an artist because there's no artists in my family. The only art that we had in our house actually was a couple of religious paintings. They had a work-study program. You would go to school 3 months and then you would work 3 months and they'd find you a job that was in the field. And so they actually found me a job with a commercial photographer in Indianapolis. This was a guy who did like everything, cars, factories, people, and he had no use for art photography. He was going to teach me the nuts and bolts of photography, which art school wouldn't teach you. He actually did, and that's a large reason why I think that I've been able to actually make a living as a photographer. I think that I can count the art photographers on one hand that I know who make a living at it. I started really getting into the way film recorded, or the way the camera records motion and time. So I had been working with water, trees, clouds. When I moved to the desert, what's really obvious and changing is the way that the light changes. The light right before dawn, and then the light 2 hours after, and the light at noon. I mean, there's just a drastic transformation compared to, say, in the Midwest, where the light's really soft and things don't really change that much. The light painting was really sort of an outgrowth of my time exposure work. When I look back on it now, I think I must have been crazy because of what I would do. I would go out, and this is with a 4x5, and I had one sheet of film because I'd have to get the whole thing on one sheet of film. You couldn't combine it in the computer later or something. I had to have that first exposure exactly right, or else the shot was already no good. And then after dark, I would open the shutter and do the light painting. So I might, kind of dance around the shot for half an hour, changing the filters and moving all around the shot. Sometimes I'd go into the shot and backlight things. And I had to have all that part right, which there was no way to really test it. So it was all sort of by feel. It was painstaking. My son decides that he wants to be a pilot. He got his license, I think it was like May 26th, and the next day I went up with him, he's like, "Dad, come on, you gotta go," I'd been in one once and it freaked me out, but I went up and I took a camera along and I shot every roll of film I had, and I was like, "When are we going again?" The aerials especially led me into thinking about these encaustics, trying to see the earth as a body. So the idea that to do it with encaustics where it would look like, have even more of that look of being like skin. A lot of what I was shooting looked like abstract paintings. So to just take that a step further and, try and make it an abstract painting. I'll take you back to the dark rooms back here in the corner, or what used to be the dark room. Well, I started working with digital first, actually out of necessity, because the lab that I had been working with closed up. Most of the labs were closing down. They were all switching to working from digital files. I hate how you work at the computer. I hate to sit down and work. I actually made myself a standing workstation. But then you have this control that you never had in the darkroom. When you take it back to the darkroom and you were trying to burn and dodge, they call it, where you're changing the lightness and darkness. And you're using these little tools that you'd make out of a piece of cardboard, and you're kind of waving it around over the picture. And in the computer you can sit there and pick out just what area you want to change. And I mean, the control that you have is just incredible by comparison. I have no big romance that, because I'm lugging around an 8x10, it makes me a better photographer. I mean, if I can get a camera that's the size of a matchbox that'll take the picture that I want, and have the resolution that I want, I don't care. That's what the whole thing of photography is about. It's about your eye, your seeing. It's not about the tools. What I want people to come away with from my photographs is a sense of a wider reality behind the forms that we think we see. Especially in photographs, we've learned to look at the world in photographs that by and large are taken at a 60th of a second, so it's like this instantaneous view of the world. To me, that's just like one little tiny aspect of what's going on out there. I'd rather try and take a photograph that makes people see that this place is living and it's moving and it's changing and there's not, you can't tie it down, as soon as you think you tied it down, it just changed into something else. Sometimes I make a photograph that almost feels like it's moving even though it's still, and that's when I get one of those, it's like, yeah, that's what I was after.